Good afternoon, all. Delighted to be back with Andrea of Redhedge, where both of us are talking about two topics. Firstly, we want to talk about artificial intelligence, and then as we progress during this series, which has really come about off the back of the success of the first podcast we recorded, and thank you all for your feedback. So AI is really the topic that we want to focus on in this podcast, but for the future, we've got a number of topics, and we're excited to be sharing our thoughts and vision relating to these. Can I open with one comment? I think this will make you smile. And so my younger son is at university, and he just started his next year, and he was asked to send an email to his professor. And so he sent an email and he used AI, and it was AI generated. And then lo and behold, his professor comes back and says, hey, Seb, did you actually produce this using AI? Because it looks like it.
Funny enough, you say that. What we did a couple of weeks ago, every month we write down a comment that we send to our investors or sometimes to the press. And Rafael, one of the traders, challenged me to say, I'm going to write one with AI and one without. And it's for you to tell me when is AI generated. And I actually managed to catch him as well. Because he did miss from Rafa, maybe it's for your son, it's the personal touch. It's very much a lot of information well put together, all correct. But the style, is different, in this particular case. But definitely, people for now can tell, especially smart guys.
And I think that it depends on how you actually structure that email. What data. It says it's only as good as the data fuel going in, and I think that's important. So you can make some of the output sound a lot more realistic, as if a human being actually produced it. But it depends on how you actually frame it initially. And then the other thing I'd say is that if you look at any of the output, it's interlaced with adjectives. And that's a really good way to tell whether or not it's been AI produced. But you touched on this earlier, i.e. the creativity bit, the lack of it, which comes out. And you don't see that creativity, which is that human spark in that AI-generated output.
One of the weaknesses of AI, which has a lot of strengths which are quite clear overall, but the creativity is a bit of the main weakness, I think, on a bit day by day reading AI generating pieces, or in general, the risk is not to be having that extra spark that an article written by a journalist has, or a comment from a trader, in my case, should have. The pain that a trader goes through a process, for example, and he writes about that pain, it really comes out. If you have the wrong position or the right position, you do the weekly or monthly comment to investors, it really comes out if it was painful for you or if it was actually a very nice momentum for the fund, for example.
Yes.
And writing about that still has, of course, if you're good in writing. I'm very bad in writing, so I love AI. That helps me out a lot. But if you're good in writing, it really comes out, and the creativity bit is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's that emotions.
Yeah,
and that's what you need to feel when you read something. And
yes.
I think it is that storytelling as well. That's the other word that I would use, because I feel that the storytelling bit isn't there yet. It's definitely getting better, isn't it? It's getting better and better every single day. But I think there are fundamental issues. And then the other thing that I find with AI is that it's almost as if it's been hyped for a while, and that hype continues. But really, AI has been around for a long while, and companies and people have been using it. And it's just, at the moment, it's really been amplified. And quite rightly so, because it's important. We're talking about it because everyone's asked us to talk about it. But the reality is that what I find somewhat upsetting is that when you see companies suddenly sticking AI into a presentation, or a fund saying, right, actually we're AI driven. And I think that's wrong unless you're actually genuinely understanding what AI is all about, and you've implemented AI solutions, and you are also building AI modules for whatever you're doing. So I guess you've seen that as well.
The world is divided in two right now. People that uses AI and don't tell, and people that don't really know anything about AI and tells it. I think right now everyone wants to be surfing this wave. We've seen the tech wave in the past, everyone wanted in, and now market is quite weak, but AI is keeping it up in terms of evaluation. So it's very, very dangerous to being catching this trap somehow. I'll give you an example. At Redhedge here, we've been using AI for years, and we don't even tell investors, we don't market it at all, because we think it's too complex to even explain in a way that, yes, we have quant-based tools, which is basically using as a tool some processes, which includes AI and machine learning, for example, to understand patterns, to understand correlations, for example. But even for simple messaging, for example, we use ChatGPT to send us a message or an email on our mobile if a trade gets to a certain level. So anywhere we are, we can get into this trade. But I don't think it's much of a selling point for us. I mean, we could use it for a selling point, but the level of question that we'll be raising in terms of, are you actually an AI fan? Are you AI-driven strategy? You want not, I mean, at least we don't want to be bucketed into AI,
Sure.
kind of path. And a lot of people really wants to be bucket there, but they don't really use it, or they don't have it in-house. They're just scaling up third party as much as we use ChatGPT for messages. But it's a completely different thing to develop in-house, as we did, or to actually just scale up someone else's code.
Do you think you'd get more allocations if you went out there and really rammed AI to investors and put it in your deck, etc.? Or
I say that yes, if I did it today, given what we have already, okay, and I market it in a nice way, in a way that people feel comfortable, I will get allocation today. But what about in 5 years? Okay, when AI's hype goes down and actually becomes bad for any reason,
Sure.
ethical, ESG, whatever.
Yes.
And then all those investors are forced out because they only invested because of that. So in terms as a business, I'd rather have investor which buys us as people and our ability to adapt AI today and whatever comes around tomorrow to have better risk-adjusted returns, rather than using one characteristic that is hyped today.
Yeah.
And look at NFTs. If you were obviously not in our business, still on NFTs, I loved, for example, the part of the smart contract. It's safe, we use it, we want to use it.
Yeah.
But if you were moving your business around NFTs and now it's completely not popular anymore, you're done. You will lose a lot of investors and you just don't get forward.
You don't progress. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that it is a tool which we should all be using. We use AI, and we've been using it as a team for well over a decade, and we have genuine expertise in AI. But again, we've not been shouting about it, and the reason is because it's woven in to the fabric of what we do. And I think that's the right approach. And
maybe the question I have is, how do you use AI in your day by day as rather than as a business? As business, it's clear. But how is it useful for you as an individual, as a person in the day by day? How do you use it? Do you use it at all, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is, I quite like writing anyway, but I still find it useful where I've got a collection of facts and I want that strung together. So I will then run it through ChatGPT. But the other way that we use it is sort of in the company, but personally as well. So for each call and meeting that I have, so if we have a call, the calls are, the notes are taken, and then those notes are put through ChatGPT and then uploaded into our CRM. And that's really powerful. That makes it a lot more efficient, because otherwise you've got a whole series of unstructured notes with no clarity, and then you get that clarity out of ChatGPT, for example. Yeah.
What my lifesaver on AI is translation. Like, there is a few programs I use, DeepL, which is amazing, because obviously we write everything in English, but we have a lot of Italian clients or Italian press, and they always want every single document in Italian. So the Google Translator is not good at all. And this AI generated translation is actually amazing. I really have put it in, change a few style word, like, some proper way of saying, more technical rather than, but the word translation is close to be perfect. And I change, takes me 5 minutes, something that took me in the past hours. And this is the best.
Yeah.
So
That's fantastic. And that's a really good, an ROI point. I mean, it comes back to whatever you do. I think that all of the tools that we will encounter, whether it's AI, whether it's something in your tech stack, such as Slack or whatever, Asana for to-dos, what's the ROI? And you just highlighted the fact that AI does give you that return on investment. So that time is clearly valuable. If you can save time using an AI engine, that's fantastic. But the downside for us, and this is what we've been talking about internally, is that clearly we have a lot of confidential data, so do you. And then with that data, what you've got to make sure of is that if you plug that into an external engine, then is that data being shared? That's what you've got to be mindful of, and how do you control that? Because I think that's where a lot of companies don't really think about it, and then they come unstuck because people say, well, hang on a second, this is confidential data you're talking about. So I think that's something that's got to be thought about and carefully addressed.
I agree, because example is last board meeting, the latest board meeting, we did say they recommended to us a minutes board meeting, AI generated by minutes basically of the meeting. And I wanted to use it, and I did bring it to the board because the compliance does the minutes for us. Obviously, it takes time. We need to review the minute, and it's never precise, and we need to adjust it all the time. And so we say, why don't we use some of those new programs? And the board say, actually, hold on, because where does it go? We need to do some due diligence, Is sensitive information. We may discuss about a client. We may discuss about, something very specific, sensible information that we don't want to race to have it, I don't know if you remember, there was a few apps a couple of years ago where you took your picture and they make you young, old, and after a while came out that those pictures then were property.
You didn't need those, Andrea.
But yes, so the risk is where does it stay, where the information goes, and what they're gonna do with
100%,
that. So due diligence, which is imposed. I mean, if I translate something, basic market commentary is fine, but what about
when it's more specific and tailored to an investor or whatever? Yeah, you got to be so careful. And also, the first question we ever get asked with our business is around security. Okay, so you're taking this data in. How secure is it? Mm-hmm. And so to actually then start saying, well, actually, we run it through an AI engine, there would be looks of shock and horror from people that understand what that means. So we wouldn't do that. We don't do that. We're very careful about what we use it for. So similar to you. Mm-hmm. But one question I've got for you is that clearly, you've got a finance and markets background, and that's what you do. And my background is similar, but I'm still amazed that with all of the power of AI, how come we're not seeing pure AI generated algos massively outperforming the market? And what's happening with that in the future?
Banks have invested billions on this, right? And funds as well. We many names comes into my mind when I think about algos into the financial market. They just yet don't work. I mean, for us, we use it. We have our own algo. We use it for inventory. So whenever we have scrap positions, and there is so many client-to-client systems right now, and we use it to clear up all the books and keep all the core position tidy and at the right size, and all the rebalances we do like that. And it's very useful as an extra tool, but it's not the core, because it's so easy to be making mistakes. So small size is okay, big size is not okay right now. Our algo, any algo really, we haven't seen, for as much as I'm aware, very much performing any of those AI-generated investment strategies, especially from the bank side, market making, because obviously the easiest one is market making. You buy and sell, bid offer capturing in fixed income, for example. But it just there is still time, I believe. Time will get this, especially on market making, on equity, for example.
Sure.
Probably will get there, but so far, why? I don't know. I think we're a bit of a long way from outperforming.
Yeah, sure. And what are the big algo shops doing, such as Winton, etc.? Do you know what they're...
Jane Street is one of the big one.
Sure.
In fixed income, for example, they did a huge push market making fixed income with AI.
And using AI.
AI,
yes.
algo purely quant driven market making. Interesting. I don't know so much about their business. We trade versus them. We do portfolio trades with them. I'm not sure if we can put this on a podcast, but the idea is, but this is the whole point. The human being tried to catch the algo. Any algo, right? Especially at the beginning, we made money off the back of people pricing through AI.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
the human being still wins because the algo doesn't get it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, you asked me why. I think the algo will work props when everyone uses it. As long as there is human being in rationality into,
Yes.
to be priced in. Okay, one simple example. Bund at 3%. Treasury at 5%, big levels, which are very much almost psychological level, because Bund was at 3% in 2011, just before the European crisis, and last time the Treasury was at 5%, which is 2007. We all know what happened after. There is no reason, not fundamental reason, and it's a completely different cycle that we are right now, that Lehman will happen tomorrow just because Treasury is at 5.
Exactly.
But people gets worried, and people sells it rather than buy. They're supposed to buy more. It's better, no? Is you free risk parking cash on 10-year at 5%.
Yes.
And you want to lock it in, but rather than the people actually sell it because they panic somehow.
Sure.
Maybe the algos are pricing this in as well, but I don't think so, because it's so much of a new irrational pattern. I don't know. Obviously, we pitch a market neutral strategy, and I was challenging the client that redeemed from us a few months ago, because we wanted to go long the market, to be outright long, very bullish. And I say, now that the credit spread are at the tights, so now that there is not much upside and a lot of downside, don't you think it's good to go back in neutral on your exposure? And the idea is they all want to sell where stuff goes down. The momentum trade, they want to be, the greediness of going and following the trend, never to mean reverse any of those trends, is huge. And so the idea is, rather than be, okay, I have a target, and here I switch into a different sub-strategy. The idea, everyone wants out at the same time, and that brings these big gaps of liquidity in any asset class, because everyone wants to sell through the weakness rather than before the weakness.
Yes.
Just because the fear of missing out on
It's that FOMO, isn't
yes.
it? Yeah, exactly. And there's that investor greed, isn't it? Yeah.
Which I find super irrational.
Yeah.
For me, it's very, very clear. I got this upside, this downside. I 100% don't want this downside, so I'm going to change this strategy, for example, right?
Yeah. And that comes back to discipline, doesn't it? Which is what you're good at. And if you don't adhere to that discipline, that's when things go horribly wrong. So, I think that human beings are irrational, aren't they? And I think that, we're talking about sort of markets and the crash now, or crashes in the past tense, but in terms of the future, I think it's really difficult to actually say, right, because of that circumstance, as you said, just off the back of where are the Bunds and other key barometers trading, you can't say, right, that's going to cause a crash. It's about trying to work out what is that unexpected event. And that's really what causes a crash. You can never say, right, it's going to be because of that war, because that's already priced in, isn't it?
One thing I've seen happening, which is a bit crazy if you think about that especially this year, CTA funds, so AI funds, we're not talking about market making, we're talking about investors which driving their process based on algos. Those investors have been driving the technicalities of the market because they did very, very well in 2022. So they have huge inflows this year, and so they are big. And everyone has had a bit of outflow, and in any case, a bit less active into the market in terms of old-fashioned way of managing funds. I'm not talking about hedge fund, it could be about long-only allocators. And they are, like, for example, the AI buying AI. So when AI stocks started to gain momentum, the algo funds started to buy because of our old momentum. So machine buying machines is science fiction almost. So machine by machine, and now all those funds are a bit worried because of this overall situation. They're all buying protection, so they're all getting hedging their long position or selling their long position, which is again generating a big technical. If AI goes bigger, most of the machine will think about the same, and so the trend will be much
exactly
deeper.
And they're syncing up and then they're selling at the same time, and
Correct.
Exactly. And that's what you've got to avoid. And I think that's happened before, hasn't it? I mean, we've seen that in previous corrections of the market.
But right now it's bigger, basically. That's the big difference.
Yeah, exactly. It's amplified, yes.
And I only see this bigger unless they blow up properly in the near future, which I don't expect, to be honest.
Yeah. And what do you think about the other big negative point which has been picked up by the press around AI with the ethics and what that manipulation angle could do to the world?
One of the big points is employment. Of course, I mean, it is like the Industrial Revolution. You want it, the new Industrial Revolution, but it comes for a price. What I see that on average, people are way more educated than they were 20 years ago, 30, 45, 40, 50, whatever, many years ago. So the idea that most of the jobs that AI is going to take is like translators, people that actually have a degree or university education. So there is going to be an employment on that sector, which can be eating quite strongly if you wish, and understanding how to retrain those very specialized professionals. It would be difficult, and they need to reinvent themselves quite strongly. And in any case, in terms of numbers, population is growing, jobs will be less, so there is a bit of math on employment for sure.
I think that's a huge issue. Honestly, I feel that even if you think about businesses which are process-driven, and most businesses are process-driven. I mean, everything we do, we break down into a process, because if we're organizing, an event, for example, it's quite formulaic, and that's very easy to automate. And that's really where it's going to start insidiously coming in and taking over people's roles. And I think that's a big issue which the world is going to have to think about and deal with. And we're already seeing that. And I also think that it comes back to, what do human beings need to do? Well, it's that word that we used earlier, creativity. I think the creatives will always be able to come in to any role and then do something positive, i.e. they actually contribute to the business. And that's what you want. I mean, what I encourage with my team is don't just do the same thing day in, day out. Come up with good new ideas about how can we improve the process. And that's what I think that human beings are good at.
I agree.
So, and I think that's what we need to try and create. That's what we need to cultivate in graduates, for example, that creative thinking, not that robotic thinking, because that's what we don't need.
Because someone will do it faster and better. You need to be very creative. And you did mention ethics. Machine cannot be, ethic. Or, they could be trained to be ethic, then would be decision making would be have a different angle. So it is another big point of weakness which I see.
Yeah, and I think it's getting better and better, i.e. AI, at hoaxing and deep faking and convincing people that something's happening which isn't the truth. I think that's actually what's really going to be difficult. How do you disseminate between truth and non-truth?
One example, 2-3 years ago, they cloned our company. And they cloned many companies in the UK, FCA regulated entity, few big names. We were the first to realize that we've been cloned. From
my word, I didn't know.
Random process. they changed a few words from our domain. It was Redhedge Asset Management XYZ, and they used the same color pattern, and they put up a website which was very similar from ours. I've said at the time, this was a few years ago, and I say it's actually a better website than we had at the time. And I'm sure there was an AI created because they did it with a lot of different entities. We immediately call up the FCA and say, look, there is this, we want to report it, please take it down. The VPN was from Russia. Was a big few companies were involved. We were the first, and how how easier it would be for those kind of entities to clone every single company in the universe. And it would be so difficult for investors to, luckily we only deal with institutional investors. Our business model is very, very clear. But what about wealth manager? They're calling up a number on a website and it's actually a fake number.
Yes.
And they steal money from them, for example, right?
It's prevalent now. So we had a similar situation. So it was a Malaysian bank that approached us and they wanted to offer a credit line. And then we were pointed at a website which looked like the real bank, and it wasn't. It was slightly edited, but looked super professional. And then the actual interaction with the so-called person at the other end, it seemed really natural. But after investigating, you could tell that it was AI generated. And I think that that's going to be part of the game, i.e. to work out, is this real or not?
Right now, we're very used. Everyone is trained. If you receive a link on the email, check the address, don't click any link, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's in everyone's mind, in the culture of any company. Now we will need to adapt in checking extras.
Yeah, I think you need to put in additional security measures. I completely agree.
But we will get to a point where it will be very difficult to tell.
I think that we probably are out of time, and that was a fantastic chat as always, and looking forward to the next one. And we've got a number of people who actually have sent messages in saying that they would love to come in and have a chat with us as well. So please do send your points and your topics in. We're super interested in hearing what you want to talk about. Thank you, Andrea, as always a pleasure.